What's up, horror lovers? Tonight we're cracking open a copper kettle nightmare that's been simmering for 6 decades. One that smells like warm chocolate, but tastes like betrayal. Picture the Jersey Shore, around 1964, seagulls screeching above the neon arcades, salt wind whipping sand onto suntan slick legs, and in the middle of it all, a stocky showman named Harry the Fudge King, Engelmeyer, diamond ring flashing like a lighthouse beam, white Lincoln purring at the curb. Crowds pack his windows to watch teenage assistants paddle molten fudge until it ribbons into glossy brown waves. Kids mash their faces to the glass, parents fish for wallets, and Harry smiles as cash piles high enough to blot out the breakers. But beneath that confectioner's grin lurks a sliver of dread, as though the man's stirring sweetness knows something bitter is bubbling up from below. Ocean City prided itself on being America's greatest family resort, a sun-bleached paradise so squeaky clean it outlawed alcohol inside town limits. No bars, no shots, no neon beer signs, just carousels, saltwater taffy, and Harry's copper pots gleaming brighter than the Atlantic at noon. By day, he was the civic darling, slapping backs at Chamber of Commerce luncheons and slipping new dryers to struggling moms as casually as he broke peppermint sticks. By night, he cruised across the 9th Street Bridge to the dunes, an anything-goes after-hours bar squatting on a marshy spit where jazz-hop drums and bootleg beer promised freedom the dry town choked off. Harry straddled those worlds like a circus rider, Masonic handshake in the afternoon, midnight laughs with lovers who knew his secrets. It was a balancing act, one toe in propriety, the other kicking at locked doors. Success breeds glitter, and Harry wore it loud. He bought a mansion in the Gardens district where hydrangeas trimmed lawns like puffs of whipped cream. Inside, mirrors caught every sparkle from that legendary ring, 5 emerald-cut diamonds totaling 8 carats, enough ice to freeze the sun. Locals swore you could spot those stones twinkling from the Ferris wheel. Yet that summer the shine looked off. Friends noticed Harry's chuckles cut short, his shoulders cinched tight beneath linen jackets. Maybe it was the extortionists prowling gay communities up and down the coast, maybe it was his own runaway expansion, or maybe, just maybe, the Fudge King felt a shadow leaning over his copper cauldrons. He started closing shops early, double-checking door locks, staring out at the breakers as if searching for something dark swimming just beyond the surf line. Labor Day weekend 1964, humidity thick as taffy, boardwalk lights buzzing like flies over spilled soda. Out at the dunes, the motto was, "Till dawn or die tryin'," and that night the rafters shook. Cigarette smoke curled into cheap strobe lights. Sweaty dancers shared outlaw sips. Bass lines thumped through sandy floorboards. Sometime after 3 a.m., Harry's white Lincoln purred into the dusty lot. Witnesses remember him laughing with a tall stranger as they weaved toward the exit. 20 minutes later, cops found the car abandoned near the club, door ajar, interior soaked in moonlight, and under the dashboard, Harry Engelmeyer jammed like a broken marionette, skull caved in, blood flecking the steering column like dried cocoa. The diamond ring, gone. The shore awoke to sirens screaming louder than the gulls. Detectives thought they struck gold almost immediately. A teenage couple had parked 3 cars back, windows fogged for very different reasons. They saw Harry climbing into the Lincoln beside a rough-edged man with restless hands. A shout tore across the lot, "Get out of here, you creep," and then the 2 figures tumbled onto blacktop, fists cracking, skull meeting pavement with a sickening crack that still echoes in local nightmares. The couple, paralyzed by fear and teenage shame, watched the stranger wipe his brow, slip something glittering from Harry's limp fingers, and melt into early morning darkness. By the time courage returned and headlights flicked on, the only trace left was a widening halo of crimson beneath the Lincoln's passenger door. What should have been an open and shut collar dissolved into taffy-pulling frustration. Ocean City cops butted heads with county investigators, evidence hopscotched between lockers, rumors swirled like cotton candy strands in a gale. Harry's sexuality became trial by innuendo, and witnesses who'd once sung grew hoarse under sideways glances. Meanwhile, the boardwalk lost its sparkle. Families eyed the copper kettles with unease, and teenage paddlers stirred in silence, afraid the next whack of the paddle might conjure ghosts. Each night the Gardens mansion sat dark, windows reflecting nothing but restless tides. Sweetness had curdled, and everyone could taste it. 3 years crawled by before a grand jury pointed its powdered wig at Christopher Brendan Hughes, 27, already stewing in federal lockup for blackmailing gay businessmen. When marshals cracked his property box, they found Harry's diamond ring glinting like bad conscience. Headlines screamed, "Case solved." But inside the courthouse, the narrative unraveled faster than a saltwater taffy pull in August heat. A jailhouse snitch balked on the stand, chain-smoked jurors slouched with boredom, and the defense painted Hughes as patsy extraordinaire. 45 minutes of deliberation later, the verdict came back, not guilty.
Reporters typed the words "officially unsolved," and the courtroom air tasted of melted fudge left too long in the sun. The acquittal slammed the door on formal justice, but whispers kept rattling the deadbolt. Boardwalk old-timers swapped theories over funnel cakes. Teens dared each other to find bloodstains in the dunes parking lot. Anglers swore at dawn they'd seen a ring-bright glimmer flicker beneath bay shallows. Somewhere in that psychic fog, Harry's ghost allegedly strolled the 9th Street Bridge, coat flapping like tattered candy wrappers, forever searching for the diamonds ripped from his lifeless hand. Every shore town has its legends. This one came wrapped in wax paper and left a taste of pennies. Enter William Kelly, local historian turned blogger, who spent decades digging through basements, attics and attics that felt like basements. He unearthed police memos that vanished from official archives, and swore a deathbed milkman confessed to seeing 2 men in marsh grass tossing a bloody shirt the dawn Harry died. The milkman claimed town bigwigs told him, "Hush, or your route ends at the bottom of the inlet." Kelly's posts grew frantic, redacted names, photocopied affidavits, arrows linking silences. The deeper he probed, the more city officials shrugged, files misplaced, and courthouse clerks suddenly forgot how to spell Engelmeyer. It was as if the whole county wanted sugar-coated amnesia. Nearly 60 years later, investigative writer Tom Donegal pried the lid off for the Atavist magazine. He tracked retired detectives who smelled like old file boxes, coaxed memories from bartenders whose joints still pulsed to phantom jukeboxes, and cornered a former defense lawyer, nursing bourbon regret. That lawyer swore the prosecution had chased the wrong Hughes brother. The true killer, he said, was Kevin Hughes, younger, taller, prone to barroom tantrums, and a perfect match for the composite sketch's hawkish nose. Kevin died in 2004, taking any confession to a far quieter grave than Harry's. Prosecutors, bruised from the '67 fiasco, never reopened the file. Donaghy's article offered closure, wrapped in question marks, a brittle bow atop a decades-old box of regret, and so the scales stayed crooked. Harry's bones lay settled, but justice still sloshed like half-set fudge refusing to firm. Walk Ocean City's Boardwalk at 3 a.m., and you might catch a phantom scent, burnt sugar mingled with coppery iron, and hear a muffled thud like a head meeting pavement. The wind might whisper, "Who took the ring?" but offer no reply. Maybe knowing the likely killer's name calms some souls, but others argue truth that arrives too late is just another trick of the night, as hollow as taffy stretched until it snaps. Daylight hides the horror well. Kids still squeal outside modern candy shops, fingers sticky, parents oblivious to the death rattling beneath their feet. Yet locals notice strange gaps. No music plays near the old Gardens mansion. Street lamps around the former Dunes lot flicker out more than any others, and every few summers a tourist swears they found a dime-sized chip of diamond glinting in dune grass before the tide swallowed it whole. The town PR office blames Boardwalk law, but janitors mutter that cleaning crews sweep up chocolate-brown sand stains no bleach can lift. Campfire mythmakers have crowned Harry the patron ghost of Ocean City. They claim if you linger alone on the 9th Street Bridge, you'll feel a hand brush your ring finger, cold as freezer-burnt fudge. Others swear that on humid Labor Day mornings, a copper kettle materializes on the shoreline, bobbing like an abandoned dinghy, then sinks without a ripple. Teenagers dare each other to steal taffy from any shop still using copper pots. Those who try invariably return white-faced, insisting the kettle hiss their names in a voice thick with salt and sorrow. So, horror fam, next time you bite into a glossy square of Boardwalk fudge, ask yourself, do you taste the butter and cocoa, or the iron tang of unanswered screams? Harry Engelmeyer poured his life into sweets, but one savage night turned that sugar to slag, and the shore has been licking the aftertaste ever since. If the wrong brother walked free, if evidence rots in somebody's garage, if diamonds glitter in muddy marsh water, well, that's a mystery as sticky as melted fudge on bare feet. Hold tight, because the next twist might be even darker. Before we blow out the neon lights, remember, monsters aren't always swamp things or masked slashers. Sometimes they're tanned boys with easy laughs who follow you to the parking lot when the band stops playing. Keep your eyes sharp, your secret safer, and your sweet tooth wary. The devil loves dessert.
Buckle in tight, because tonight's trip to the Jersey Shore involves more than seashells and suntan lotion. It ends with a young woman sprawled in cold sand, her mouth crammed with grit, a ligature digging into her neck, while a roller coaster clacks overhead like a rusty steel Grim Reaper, demanding one last ticket. 20-year-old Carol Ann Hill waved goodbye to her snug Kensington row house on the first weekend of June 1970, chasing boardwalk heat, cheap rum, and maybe a flicker of neon romance. Instead, she became the nastiest souvenir Wildwood ever coughed up, a tragedy so brutal, even coffee-hardened Philly commuters choked on the headline. Picture carnival bulbs flickering like dying fireflies, fryer grease icing the air, and a salty haze rolling in as if the Atlantic itself tried to warn her. Feel that electric prickle crawling your spine? Good. Strap in. Each turn on this ride dives deeper into darkness. Saturday afternoon, Carol hopped off the Trailways bus with a grin brighter than chrome bumpers, inhaling the sugar-fried perfume only boardwalk towns can bottle. Planks thudded under 1,000 flip-flops, vendors barked 2-for-1 taffy deals, and gulls screamed overhead like gossiping banshees. She rocked cut-off shorts, a pastel tank, and enough teased hair to hide contraband secrets. Every hungry eye tracked her. Friends back home knew her as bold, mouthy, the kind of city girl who'd steal the cue ball if guys hogged the pool table. Swagger served her well in Philly alleys, but on vacation swagger turns into bait. As daylight bled orange, Carol and a loose pack of motel acquaintances hopped bar to bar, plastic cups overflowing with foamy lager, jukeboxes hammering credence. What she didn't notice, what no one notices until it's too late, were the new sets of eyes sticking to her silhouette, cataloging every laugh and footstep like entries in a grim ledger. Sunset vanished behind motel roofs as the crew drifted toward the Bolero bar, a squat brick tavern humming with cigarette haze and ceiling fans wrestling June humidity. A greasy neon sign flashed Bolero in blood-red tubes, danger literally spelled out for anyone sober enough to read it. Inside, vinyl booths sweated beneath beer-soaked bodies, ashtrays overflowed, and the jukebox spat Spirit in the Sky on repeat. Carol elbowed to the bar, ordering a rum and coke that tasted mostly like rum. Vacation math, right? Just then, a slender stranger ghosted onto the neighboring stool with predator grace. Witnesses later recalled his chill, early 20s, 5'7", maybe 150, light brown hair combed like he cared. No beach towel, no souvenir bag, just a stare cool enough to freeze ash midair. Carol never felt the cold draft of danger settling beside her. Conversation sparked fast. Jukebox picks, fireworks rumors, which pier had the best view. His voice slid under bar noise like a calm tide, promising exclusive after-hours access to Hunt's pier rides. Maintenance guys owed him. The boardwalk thrived on handshake deals sealed in smoke. Nothing about that pitch felt off-script to a city girl who'd heard worse. Outside, humidity turned the night into a wet blanket, carnival bulbs buzzing like neon cicadas. Carol laughed, maybe twirled a lock of hair. The universal green light creeps adore. Soon they slipped from the Bolero's red glow into Atlantic Avenue's darker veins, two silhouettes stitched together by shadow and fading music. None of her friends followed. Freedom is a drug too. Hold tight, because the next drop is savage. Around 9 p.m., Carol and the unnamed Romeo strolled the planks toward Hunt's Pier, past corn dog stands where mustard dripped like lazy sweat, and barkers yelled closing time specials. To strangers, they looked like any young couple hunting a quiet kissing spot. Yet each step drew them closer to the roller coaster's skeletal frame, a black colossus clacking empty cars for test runs. Service gates stay unlocked. Security patrols leave 10-minute gaps wide enough to swallow secrets. Eyewitness memories splinter. Some heard giggles near a fortune-teller's booth. Others swear voices spiked in argument by the skee-ball arcade, but memories misbehave after Pilsners. The single fact etched in iron: they walked straight toward the coaster's belly. Midnight swept family vacationers back to fluorescent motel corridors, leaving a skeleton crew of drunks, line-cook stoners and creatures of appetite. The air shifted from sugary to metallic as Carol stepped off the planks onto cigarette-studded sand. Under the pier, the breeze stank of rust, rotting kelp, and old pennies, far from postcard fresh. Shadows from steel beams sliced moonlight into prison bars, each lift chain clang echoing a countdown. He may have whispered sweet nothings, maybe directions. Either way, she followed past a crooked employees-only sign. Her flip-flops slid on damp boards, wood croaked warnings, but no alarm sounded. Overhead, maintenance bulbs flickered, revealing pockets of darkness thick enough to smother a star. If she sensed danger, it was already pouring concrete around her ankles. In that maze of crossbeams and peeling paint, investigators believed the predator struck. A cord thin enough for a pocket, strong enough for murder, whipped around her throat in one practiced jerk. Panic bloomed, nails raked skin, but the garrote dug deeper. He dragged her into a dune alcove where sand formed natural mufflers and shoved handfuls between her teeth, turning every gasp into a mudslide. Imagine that taste: wet, salty, gritty despair. Above, coaster cars rattled through a test run, chains snapping like camera shutters, capturing nothing. Carol's legs thrashed a doomed dance, toe paint scraping damp wood, until motion stopped and her pulse evaporated into Atlantic wind. Meanwhile, Wildwood's nightscape played on, arcade bells, mufflerless bikes, lovers screaming in harmless terror on safer rides. At 12:20 a.m., a patrol cruiser crawled its routine loop beneath the pier, headlights carving tombstone patterns across sand. One cop griped about overtime, the other scanned shadows.
The beam snagged on something pale, a foot protruding from a dune. They trudged closer, shoes sinking, seawater stink mixing with copper. Carol lay twisted, half-buried, eyes glassy, hair matted with wet grit. The ligature still hugged her neck like a malicious necklace. Her tongue jutted between swollen lips. One officer retched into the surf while his partner radioed for backup, voice cracking. Siren lights strobed against metal columns, painting each bolt a demonic eye. Vacationers peeked from balconies, mistaking the whales for party noise. Yellow crime scene tape soon fluttered in the ocean wind like a cursed carnival banner no ride operator would claim. Morning papers bled ink. Philadelphia woman slain, body found under coaster. The autopsy read colder than stainless steel. Ligature strangulation with sand aspiration, contusions on wrists and neck, defensive wounds beneath nails, death within 90 minutes of last sighting. Forensic techs plucked sand grains from her trachea like harvesting despair, yet 1970 science could only label, not decode, the evidence. The cord, maybe shoelace, maybe nylon string, offered no prints. Humidity had erased every trace. Her belongings, cheap purse, Polaroid of her kid brother, cherry lip gloss, were logged, bagged and shelved in lockers now buried behind newer tragedies. 2 states away, her mother ID'd a bracelet engraving, spared the crueler view of that silenced face. Detectives pounded Wildwood's boards for weeks, grilling bartenders who'd poured oceans of alcohol, vendors glued to fryers, and teens more afraid of curfews than subpoenas. Composite sketches wallpapered precincts, but none matched any arrested drifter or AWOL soldier. Security cameras, sci-fi fantasy. Without forensics or footage, the hunt relied on human memory, a resource with a shorter shelf life than funnel cake. Witness details contradicted hourly, military jacket versus plain tee, polite versus pushy. A bartender thought his name was Mike, or maybe Mark, hard to hear over credence. Budget dried up after tourist season. Reporters chased fresher blood. Carol's file thickened only with sorrow, each stapled note another weight pressing truth deeper beneath bureaucratic sand. In Kensington, grief drifted through brick row homes like winter drafts. Neighbors hosted spaghetti dinners to fund the funeral. Local teens who once dreamed of surfboards now vowed never to touch a pier. Carol's little brother rewound the home movie where she blows birthday candles, chasing the real laugh, not the tinny echo haunting his sleep. Philly radio stations opened tip lines. Psychics swarmed the family with sailor, biker, carnival visions. Every false hope ripped new scabs no one had strength to bandage. Summer turned to fall, fall to winter, yet the Hill household stayed locked at 12:20 a.m., eternally waiting for a patrol car to reappear with better news. Decades ticked by, evidence bags browned, cassette interviews warped, and cold case detectives inherited a story older than some of their parents. DNA kits teased possibility. Could fibers yield a profile? Salt, time and careless early 70s handling whispered no. The killer's ghost remained unphotographed, unconfessed. Hunt's Pier changed owners, rides swapped names, and the iconic coaster was dismantled in the 90s. Demolition crews couldn't bulldoze the stain. Locals still cross themselves when night fog crawls beneath new attractions, sensing dread brochures never print. Horror, as you know, loves a campfire. Teenagers dared each other, crawl under the pier at midnight, count to 20 without bolting, and listen for the girl gagging on sand. Some swore they heard wet coughing on the wind. A shaky cassette captures only surf, yet listeners insist there's a faint plea under the hiss. Gift shops quietly stock Wildwood Haunts pamphlets, sliding Carol's tragedy between pirate lore and lighthouse phantoms. Fear sells almost as well as saltwater taffy. Town officials issue polite denials on Thursdays and cash tourism checks on Fridays. Even so, older residents choose different benches when shadows lengthen, as if saving the dead her own seat. Fast forward 50-plus years, the killer could be living out retirement in a quiet cul-de-sac, silver hair hiding memories of blood-slick knuckles. Think he tells ghost stories to grandkids, omitting the part where he's the monster? Next time a stranger offers you a shortcut or free ride tickets, remember Carol's final walk. Evil doesn't wear horns, it wears a half grin and says, "No lines tonight." Could you scream over the coaster's clangs? History suggests the answer is no, and the Atlantic is excellent at keeping secrets.
Tonight, we yank you by the wrist through the garish midway lights of Long Beach, California, straight into a secret so rotten the Pacific breeze can't wash the stink away. Picture yourself on a cheap date at the Pike in December 1976, arcades buzzing, gulls screeching, the sea slapping pilings below. You duck into laugh in the dark, expecting rubber rats and spritzes of cold water. Instead, you glide past a crimson figure swinging from a noose, its skin cracked like desert clay under fluorescent paint. You laugh, maybe point, never guessing the thing looking back at you once robbed a train, took a bullet, and spent 65 years touring the country as the most unwilling showman on earth. How did a real corpse wind up as background scenery for squealing tourists and later a hit TV show? Pull your hoodie tight. This ride clacks uphill fast, and every creak is a warning the track ahead was nailed together by ghosts. The catalyst arrives on an unseasonably chilly morning when a prop crew for the $6 million man barges into the shuttered funhouse. Dust drifts in shafts of sickly pink light. The air tastes of old plywood and stale popcorn oil. Electricians curse at frayed cables while a production assistant rattles off shooting angles. Then a prop man, eyes bleary from all-night prep, decides the hanging dummy isn't framed right. He grabs the figure's wrist to pivot it toward camera. Snap. The arm shears off at the elbow and thuds onto the plywood floor with a fleshy slap no foam mannequin could fake. A sour-sweet odor unfurls, the unmistakable musk of things meant to stay buried. The room freezes. Even the ride's recorded screams cough to silence. In the dead hush, someone whispers, "That's Bone." The set floods with panicked footsteps, echoing like war drums along the empty track, heralding that unscripted horror just hijacked Hollywood's storyboard. Sirens bleed through carnival music still piping faintly from outdoor speakers, and uniformed officers shove past cardboard werewolves toward the scene. They shine maglights on the figure's gaping sleeve, yellowed humerus, brittle tendons, and flaky red paint caked where flesh should live. Evidence techs bag the severed arm like contraband, while detectives mumble about sick pranks. At dawn, the body rides shotgun in a coroner's wagon, bumping over cracked pier planks as gulls wheel above, screaming like damned souls cheering the exit. In the fluorescent morgue chill, pathologists peel away layers of carnival lacquer to expose parchment-thin skin. Under the sternum, a Ponor .32 caliber slug squats amid mummified tissue, and tissue samples glow with arsenic, an antique embalming cocktail popular before World War I. The lab phones homicide. "Gentlemen, your plastic ghoul is actually human, dead a very, very long time. Laugh in the dark just got promoted from tourist trap to crime scene. Fingerprints are dust dry, but a faded tattoo and a bullet path whisper of frontier violence." Through archival wanted posters and yellowed pharmacy ledgers ordering arsenic, investigators chase a ghost named Elmer McCurdy, an Oklahoma outlaw who couldn't organize a lemonade stand, let alone a train robbery. October 1911, McCurdy's last heist nets $36, 2 bottles of whiskey, and a hail of rifle fire from an angry posse. Cornered in a barn near Pahorska, he swigs whiskey, fires blindly, and catches fatal lead in the chest. No kin claim the body, so Undertaker Joseph Johnson sees opportunity gleaming brighter than coffin handles. He embarks on a twisted entrepreneurial venture, embalm McCurdy with an arsenic brew strong enough to pickle a bull, stand the corpse in the parlor, and charge rubberneckers a nickel dropped between the stiff's teeth to witness the bandit who wouldn't give up. Even in death, Elmer starts earning his keep. For 5 dusty years, McCurdy leans against the mortuary wall like a drunk uncle who missed the couch, skin leathery, mustache frozen in mid-sneer. Then 2 carnival hustlers blow into town, spinning yarns that their Elmer's long-lost brothers come to pay respects. The Undertaker, eager to square storage fees, forks over the body. Faster than a con man can say, "Step right up." McCurdy's corpse joins the Great Patterson Carnival, touring state fairs beside bearded ladies and 2-headed calves. Under canvas tents he weathers thunderstorms of Gawker laughter, his bullet hole a marquee attraction. One season bleeds into the next. Rainwater warps his wooden shipping crate. Reporters pen blurbs about the embalmed desperado who draws crowds bigger than any living sideshow barker. Each mile down ragged rails strips another flake of dignity, but the roadshow never worries about consent, not when morbid curiosity turns a bigger profit than popcorn. By the 1930s, the country gasps for breath under the Great Depression, yet death still sells. Enter impresario Louis Sonny, a showman with a grin sharp enough to slice rope and a traveling museum of crime bursting with wax Dillingers and cotton straw Capones. McCurdy, purchased like used furniture, stands center stage inside a glass coffin, arms crossed, chest wound spotlighted. Patron after patron taps the glass, marveling at the real deal among wax fakes. Decades grind past. When Sonny dies, his son locks the mummy in a Los Angeles warehouse thick with mildew and silence. Dust forms a tomb within a tomb. Nobody remembers the bullet-ridden drifter once soaked in arsenic. Meanwhile, Hollywood churns out gangster flicks, unaware the most authentic corpse in town lies in a padlocked crate, dreaming paper-white nightmares beneath cobweb shrouds. But relics of true crime never stay boxed forever, especially when amusement park landlords smell nostalgia-scented ticket sales. Flash forward to the early 1960s, when a wax museum broker scavenging Sonny's estate squints at the mummy, pokes a brittle cheek and shrugs. He lumps McCurdy in with wax gangsters sold to the New Pike Amusement Zone in Long Beach, a seaside sprawl famous for cheap thrills and cheaper maintenance. Park staff, oblivious to the cargo's morbid authenticity, unwrap the corpse like kids opening late Christmas, recoil at the shriveled face, then decide a coat of fluorescent red paint will freshen the look.
They jam a length of rope around the neck, hang the body and laugh in the dark's final corridor, and position a black light bulb overhead to make the contorted shape glow hellishly. Nobody bothers to secure the hands, wooden for imposters but greasy with real hardened flesh. For 14 years teenagers spill cola and shriek as the ride carts jerk past a dead man who once robbed trains for whiskey money. Irony, thy name is Midway. Think about that the next time you trust a funhouse rail. Parents clutch toddlers, lovers steal kisses, and McCurdy's jaw hangs slack as though mid-warning, run while you can. Bolt spray from the Pacific creeps through plywood seams, crusting his hair with invisible crystals. Seagull guano spots his painted shoulders. Maintenance crews focus on patching leaks, not checking the authenticity of props. Even when vandals break off a finger in 1973, supervisors blame brittle plaster and slather on more red. Years stack atop years like rotting carnival tickets. The corpse absorbs the laughter, the cigarette smoke, the heartbeat thumps of surf under the pier, each vibration sowing hatred into dried sinew. By the time the $6 million man arrives to film the Carnival of Spies episode, Elmer McCurdy has spent longer dangling in that glow paint purgatory than he ever lived as flesh and blood. The dead, it seems, pay rent in silence. Back in the morgue, forensic pathologist Dr. Joseph Choi slices through layers of pigment, muttering that this plastic victim has real hair follicles. X-rays show coins lodged in the throat, nickels and pennies oxidized green from 5 decades of sideshow spectatorship. Investigators comb newspaper archives, chasing carnival routes, wax museum inventories, even insurance receipts for shipping exhibits. A break comes when an aged carny recalls a wax dummy that smelled funny and oozed brown syrup when heated spotlight bulbs drew too close. That memory leads them to Sonny's probate files and finally, to McCurdy's original Oklahoma death certificate. Like reading a cursed contract aloud, speaking Elmer's name reanimates the whole sad saga. Drunk, drifter, accidental celebrity. Reporters swarm the coroner's office, cameras popping like hailstones. Headlines the next day screech, Funhouse corpse identified as outlaw shot in 1911. America gulps its morning coffee a little slower, suddenly suspicious of every roadside attraction. Across the country, Guthrie, Oklahoma, once a lawless rail hub, now a sleepy heritage town, stirs at the news. Local historians pound rotary phones, demanding their native miscreants return. Long Beach officials, fearing lawsuits, juggle offers, a free Hollywood burial for publicity, a carnival consortium wanting the mummy back on the circuit, even a rock band begging to use him on stage. Ultimately, conscience, or perhaps exhaustion, wins. Paperwork grinds through interstate bureaucracy, while McCurdy waits under lock and key, an unwilling VIP surrounded by coolers of freshly deceased nobodies. Journalists sneak peeks through Venetian blinds, jotting that the mummy's lips curl in sardonic amusement. Maybe Elmer enjoys the limelight at last, safe from sticky amusement park fingers, but still caught in a system turning his remains into headlines, ratings, and museum bids. Dead men, it turns out, earn frequent flyer miles they never signed up for. Spring 1977 unveils a funeral caravan fit for either folk hero or freak show casualty. Nobody can decide which. A Victorian horse-drawn hearse creaks along Guthrie's brick streets, led by black mares whose hooves clack like metronomes counting sins. School kids skip class to watch, clutching licorice whips and comic books. Bagpipers drone a dirge so mournful pigeons scatter from courthouse eaves. McCurdy's casket, silver pewter, loaned by a mortuary that sees the PR payoff, glints beneath a sky the color of tarnished tombstones. The minister voices platitudes about redemption, but townsfolk gossip that outlaw bones never rest. Somewhere an elderly carnival roustabout wipes away a tear neither for sorrow nor joy, but for the closing of a bizarre chapter in showbiz history. Even the mayor admits on mic, no other city buries a man 66 years late, but Guthrie makes things right, eventually. The crowd chuckles, half sure the corpse might answer back. At Summit View Cemetery's Boot Hill section, grave diggers lower the casket into red Oklahoma clay that smells of iron and rain. Wary officials watch workers pour 2 feet of concrete atop the lid, a grim frosting ensuring nobody steals the funhouse mummy for encore performances. The slab hisses as wet mix meets casket metal, sealing secrets with every bubble that pops. You can almost picture Elmer McCurdy inside, hearing the muffled splatter and thinking, at least they didn't charge admission. Tombstone engravers chisel his name, dates, and a terse epitaph. Shot by Sheriff's Posse 1911, words blunt as a blackjack. Sunset leans low, painting the sky blood orange, before slipping behind prairie horizons. Coyote howls thread the dusk, sounding suspiciously like carnival barkers calling one last show. Dirt settles, stars ignite. For the first time since 1911, Elmer is motionless in soil instead of swinging in neon gloom. But the story doesn't end with concrete. McCurdy's legacy still rips through popular culture like a rusted nail through canvas. True crime podcasts salivate over the prop that bled, filmmakers option screenplays, and urban legend forums spiral new conspiracies that there are others like him, bodies tucked in ghost trains from Jersey boardwalks to Tokyo rooftop parks. Every Halloween, laugh-in-the-dark memorabilia spikes on auction sites. A broken finger rumored to be McCurdy's fetches $5,000 before experts debunk it as resin. Meanwhile, the Pike itself, shuttered in 1979, crumbles into condo developments, but locals swear phantom screams echo when fog rolls heavy off the sea. Perhaps it's wind through unplugged speakers, or McCurdy's last laugh, rattling across time zones. Either way, every theme park health inspection now looks twice at its skeleton crew, just in case one skeleton still owns a social security number. So what lessons bleed from this midway nightmare? First, never underestimate capitalism's willingness to monetize corpses. Second, history doesn't sit quietly in textbooks. Sometimes it dangles above your cotton candy halo, waiting to drop hints, literal body parts into your lap. Third, funhouses, those warped mirrors of reality, occasionally reflect the truth too well.
Elmer McCurdy wanted fast cash and eternal thrills. He got both, though not the way he imagined. In death, he traveled farther, entertained longer, and inspired more docudramas than a living outlaw with perfect aim. Yet the price was dignity, chipped away layer by lurid layer until only bone and rumor remained. We, the living, pay admission by forgetting that every grinning prop could mask a darker provenance. Next time fluorescent skeletons swing above your ride cart, ask yourself, do those toes curl like plastic or like mummified regret? And with that, dear Midnight Riders, our tour screeches to a halt. You're free to raise the lap bar, just watch your step. Reality can be slipperier than any wax-polished haunt. Somewhere beneath Oklahoma concrete lies the petrified heart of a drifter who wouldn't give up, his bullet forever lodged like punctuation in a thriller's last sentence. The border between spectacle and exploitation. Paper-thin plywood, baby, and you just punched a hole straight through. Feeling brave enough for another ticket? Or will you squint harder at every carnival ghoul from now on, hunting for seams that aren't rubber but scar tissue? Remember, the corpse in the funhouse wasn't a legend. He was a man whose story we wrote in grease paint and neon. Sleep tight, horror lovers, and keep your eyes peeled. The next prop you mock might be looking right back.